exclusively on Arizona Sports 98.7 FM. And check us out online at ArizonaSports.com.
Shocker in Tempe, Eastern Michigan comes in and upsets the Sun Devils. 30-21 is your final score. Welcome to our Devils Digest post-game analysis. My name is Nick Borgia. Alongside me is Hode Rubino. And Hode, this game, I mean, no one could have ever expected that it would go down the way it did. Just nothing seemed to go right for the Sun Devils all around.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. I mean, I don't think it was a fluke that this game saw ASU pretty much a 3-touchdown favorite. It's not only was what ASU did up until now, but also what Eastern Michigan did. I mean, they came in a 1-1 record. I don't think they were extremely impressive on really either side of the ball coming in. And even though ASU was coming off a loss at Oklahoma State, you and I were there in Stillwater, and we talked about there were some positives for ASU to build on. And tonight, they absolutely lay an egg. I mean, I've been covering the team for 22 years. I've seen some bad non-conference losses on the road and at home. And I think this by far does top them all. And I know it might sound like a recency bias, but I just remember in any of the disappointing or surprising non-conference losses, ASU absolutely being mishandled. Lack of preparation might be too kind of a description for what we saw. I don't think anybody in their most wildest pessimistic dreams thought that ASU was going to get manhandled on the line of scrimmage, no matter which side of the ball than when they were actually lining up. It's just one of those games, Nick, that you might try to take something out of it, but it's almost like falling under the category of just burning the game film, because I don't know what ASU can really take out of this other than prepare much, much better for what lies for the rest of 2022.
Right, so let's talk about Eastern Michigan. In our preview, we talked about this team being a passing team. So far in all their games, they've been lighting up their opponents through the air, and that's what we expected to happen tonight in Tempe. That was about as far from the truth as you could possibly be. They put that ball in the hands of their running back and just tore up ASU on defense. So it was something to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely right, Nick. Samson Evans, he's a running back that maybe was not on the radar of the handful of NFL scouts that were here in the stadium. And I think that starting tonight, he's definitely going to be one running back that some NFL teams are really going to take a close look at. Unfortunately, the website for the live stats is down right now, so I can't give you an exact figure. But if he's under 300 yards, Nick, he's pretty darn close to it. And this is a running back that, as talented as he is, had just about, I think, 108 yards in the first 2 games total. Okay, so to your point, yes, I think this ASU defense was absolutely expecting this Eagle offense to absolutely air it out and really challenge the secondary time and time again. Here comes Samson Evans, and you talk about such a fitting first name. I don't know what his haircut looks like, but he definitely did play like Samson tonight. The backup quarterback was able to run the read option in the zone read to perfection, and both of those two players in specific, Nick, just absolutely ran up and down ASU's defense. Again, going back to my earlier point, the defensive line, even though they did actually did get their first sack of the year, ASU, I think, finished the game with 2 sacks, the second one coming from Merlin Robinson, first one from Anthony Cooper. But nonetheless, I don't think that defensive line was really able to do anything against the run game for the visitors. And they basically just dictated the tone of the game. I mean, there were some of the other issues for ASU to contend with, but as the old saying goes, your run game and your defense, if they travel well, then that gives you a fighting chance, if not more, in each and every road game, no matter how big of an underdog or how big of a favorite you are. And going back to our earlier point, here's Eastern Michigan, a 3-touchdown underdog, but they're able to run the ball at will, and that might be putting it kindly. And here's ASU finding itself on one of the biggest upsets of any Pac-12 team in this short 2022 season.
And if we shift our focus to the offense too, not a whole lot to take away from that either. Just unable to really move the ball as effectively as they expected to. They were able to do things against Oklahoma State that they weren't able to do against Eastern Michigan. So that was a surprise to us. What did you see on the offensive front?
Well, it's one thing to come out against a defense like Oklahoma State and really have a slow start. But for ASU to actually go 3 and out in its first 2 possessions of the game, against a defense that has given up, if I'm not mistaken, over 330 yards on average coming into the season. And I know you can talk about a small sample size, but really Eastern Michigan, not only offensively but defensively, didn't really show any signs of being like a daunting opponent for Arizona State, and definitely not at the caliber of what ASU played last week in Stillwater. And I think that Arizona State, on offense and on defense for that matter, was able to show some encouraging signs, and to take just a huge step back tonight, again against a defense that really had no business shutting down ASU as much as it did. I mean, this is absolutely baffling. I mean, the running game was maybe at spurts going okay for Arizona State, but obviously when you play from behind, you really need this passing game to click. I mean, and I know that everybody, including ourselves, was looking foolish about what we previewed coming into this game, thinking that Arizona State against a secondary that absolutely looked abysmal so far in the 2022 season was absolutely going to go wild and really have their way in the air against the Eastern Michigan secondary. But Emory Jones, the ASU quarterback, extremely inaccurate. He was trying a few shots down the field and into the end zone, and I think in most of those throws he just absolutely did not place the ball for the wide receiver to make a play. Sure, I mean, you do have your typical drop passes here and there, but that passing game was really never able to get in rhythm. I felt that the offensive line, even when they seemingly blocked well, then that turned out to be a penalty. Again, we don't have the stats in front of us, but I think ASU, again, in the double digit in penalties. And it's not that you say, okay, you played Oklahoma State, maybe it's something that you expected to happen, but you definitely don't expect that to happen against such an inferior opponent like Eastern Michigan. That offense, much like in Stillwater last week, shot itself in the foot time and time again, and really was just not able to recover at all. So it's just must be really frustrating for the coaches, for the wide receivers, and for Emory Jones, that again, they had an opponent that really showed so much on film in terms of giving you abundance of opportunities to get this passing game, really going, because we talked about it last week in Stillwater, Nick. I thought there was some foundation. I'm not saying a huge, significant one, but some foundation that, okay, maybe ASU can actually jumpstart this passing game. Absolutely did not happen against Eastern Michigan. And again, when you play from behind, pretty much from the opening whistle and until the last one, this is definitely a bad night to pick, to have a very anemic passing game, a very errant passing game. And here's Arizona State standing at a 1-2 non-conference record.
Yeah, and nobody would have expected that in the preseason maybe, but now coming in the conference play, Utah comes to town next week. And after a game like tonight, how do you kind of leave it behind and come into the important conference games like Utah and just start on a fresh slate?
That's the million-dollar question, Nick. Where does ASU go from here? How much soul-searching can ASU do that would actually result in them absolutely flipping the script and going from, a 2-touchdown underdog probably coming into this next Saturday to actually pulling an upset, of their own? But we knew that coming into this year that ASU, even if they went 3-0 in non-conference play, they got a brutal start for Pac-12 play. They open here at Utah at home. Then they got USC on the road. And the game after that, before the bye week, they got Washington at home. Washington, a big winner over a top 15 team in Michigan State. Absolutely murder's row of a schedule. And even if ASU was really clicking on all cylinders, really being pleasantly surprising on both sides of the ball, I would still think those games are challenging. And now, after laying an absolute egg, and that's an understatement, against Eastern Michigan, so even the most optimistic ASU fan out there that thought that ASU maybe could upset a team like Utah at home, maybe even a team like USC on the road, definitely has to rethink that after what they saw against Eastern Michigan. It's going to be really, really hard to pick yourself up from the floor, even against a much inferior opponent, because now I think it's really the mental side of the Sun Devil team that needs just as much repair as the physical side. And to be honest, when you got a team like Utah coming into town, that's not exactly the team that you want to face when you're trying to figure things out. And Herm Edwards said before the year started that the identity of this team is going to be pretty much set after 3 games. Well, after 3 games, after the non-conference slate for the Sun Devils, this is definitely not a pretty picture that has been painted for Arizona State. I definitely respect all the players and the coaches that really took exception to all the low expectations that were placed on this team in the preseason, all the criticism from local media, from national media, and they wanted so badly to prove everybody wrong. And unfortunately right now, a lot of those naysayers, a lot of those critics are actually really having their predictions so far being really played out to script. And again, if you're really trying to get on the winning track against a team like Utah next week, that seems like almost like a mission impossible. I'm really curious to see how ASU prepares this week, how they come out on Saturday. But it's going to be a tough feat to say the least. And again, it's just one of those games that you're absolutely baffled for all the wrong reasons, and it's really hard to draw any optimism to what's lying ahead for the rest of the 2022 season. I know it's only 3 games out of 12, but there's really not a lot of, I would say, hope and optimism that lies on the horizon for Arizona State, especially with the murderer's row of a schedule they start conference play.
It's going to be a crazy schedule for them ahead. Obviously, next week at Utah, as we mentioned. We'll still be here. We've got all the coverage at DevilsDigest.com, at Devils Digest on Twitter. So be sure to keep it locked in there. Win or loss, we have the coverage. But in the meantime, I've been Nick Borgia. That's Hoder Bino of Devils Digest, and we appreciate you tuning in.